Did I ever think we were going to make it big? Well, it's hard to say. Like, I always had faith in the band, but to make it this big, it's hard to anticipate, really. First time I saw James, he was stepping off that bus with nothing more than the clothes on his back, trying to make him this big town.
We formed back in the early 80s. James, he had a rivalry with some group I don't even remember.
Obviously we needed 3 members of the band, because you know the old Aztec rule, 3 makes the whole. 1, 2, 3. Unfortunately it was only me and James at the time, so this is where Troy McGee steps in.
Troy McGee and Vincent Binns, two already established artists. Troy, of course, coming from the Beatles, and Vincent coming from NWO.
He basically rang me up one day, said, "Get your ass over to the jam pad, the old bungalow."
At first, I was pretty sure he was gay. Bit of a faggot.
And I showed up. Vince was there. He was with another man. I didn't know what he was doing. It was a bit sus.
We had a couple of jams. Let's say James wasn't the best singer, but man, that guy could entertain. He was up there, and even when we were jamming in my mum's basement, he was just out there, just all over the place. It was absolutely fantastic. Just electric to be around.
Slap the bass! Slap the bass! Slap the bass! Slap the bass!
Where do I start?
We're gonna play the Babylon song.
Well, we had huge success with our live gigs just around the country. So we decided we'd bring out the EP just as a little teaser.
We went into a couple of recording studios, and they said,
"Who are you people, and why are you in my studio?" And he said, "We're here to make music."
First recording session for that it went disastrously. Vince didn't show up for 2 days. He was off in Cuba with some Latin boy. I don't know what he was doing. When we got together, just started playing Pokemon. It was messed up. We were all acid tripping. Fucking had heroin in my bum. It was fucking a weird time.
James sat there and was just scribbling away all these lyrics and all this poetry, producing gold, they would say, right from out of his ass. Legitimately, he used to put a pencil up his ass and write. That became problematic after a while, because a couple of times we lost a couple of pencils. That's where fundies actually went down. Troy, though, he brought his mix. He came in there. He bought a guitar once. That's what he did on Nonsense. So that was our first time playing with our instruments.
I just woke up out of a coma 10 days later, and there it was. It was an amazing experience, yeah.
Troy McGee was obviously hitting up the gay clubs at the time.
I just did it. You know, I was popping the ickies, getting things inserted in my bum. It was a great time. Playing, just had the doof-doofs going.
James was doing a fair bit of acid. So we tried to capture the exact feel of what these two in particular were feeling.
To my friend,
It's like pure babies and semen on a disc.
A Shark Attack with Noise kind of genre-esque.
Couldn't do it at the time, because at the time they were recorded still on the old gramophone. They were using those turntables, and the things we were producing just weren't up to... Well, you got to look at it as a piece of black piece of tar, practically. James Rennison, not his thing.
It was good for a first release. I thought, I think from the second I first heard it, I knew that they would be my favourite band and that I'd be in love with James Rennison for the rest of my life. But sadly, I'll never be able to touch him.
To be perfectly honest with you, I thought they were a bunch of pussies.
When I first heard Nachos, I thought they were a piece of shit!
Uns Migra. Which one's that? I don't think I listened to that one. Was that a good one?
I think the Nachos sound really was a mix between cheese and salsa and kissing people.
Straight off, we got this offer. First day back after we put an ad in the newspaper from this club called Rats. But at the time we were a bit busy because we just got a call that in a week we were going to play at Woodstock. This was back in the original Woodstock. Hendrix was there, and they said James Rennison made the night, made the day, and made the night.
It was pretty crazy. I mean, some girls weren't wearing any clothes, which was crazy also.
He formed the revolution on mudsliding. And that's when it started. That's when it started at Woodstock. That's when everybody started doing it. He was the one who made it cool. Like, he wasn't doing it, but he made it cool.
He was just lying down on the asphalt road, and well, I guess that's all I need to say for that one.
I love him. I mean, when you compare him to people like Kurt Cobain, like, you know, all those really good pop singers and R&B singers, he's just like the best. He stands out the most. Yeah, I really think that he's like the next James Brown, which is good because his first name is James.
We took a lot of different directions in the next few albums that we would produce. The first one being Nachos in Space.
A lot of international flavour, and we just felt it from our hearts. The bass pumping through our thighs into the groinal region.
It was a big leap from Uns Mardi Gras. Like, that was, if that's considered their roots, just the raw elements of Nachos. I think with the success and money they got from that, they pushed the boundaries a bit. They used all these weird sounds and loops. Like, they put a lot of effort into it, but it's hard to say whether it paid off. I think they got a bit too big for their britches.
It had its ups and downs, but definitely James Rennison, the sidekick behind that project. He definitely made it what it was, you know. Yeah.
People like David Bowie said that it was the most inspirational thing that he went on to record that other space one. I don't know. I don't know the guy that well. Neil Armstrong said that's what inspired him to grow up to become an astronaut. That was definitely a big point in his career. And we also inspired the new Swedish genre of death trance. So, I don't know, I haven't listened to it. It's apparently not bad.
I think when Nachos in Space came out, that's when I really started jumping on the bandwagon, the Nacho bandwagon, as they called it back in the day. It was sort of a nickname given to people who were Nachos fans on the bandwagon. Yeah, when I first heard Nachos in Space, I thought the spacey sounds and the new electronica phase of it was sort of a new direction for Nachos, and I think the album was, you know, a bit shit, but ultimately, you know, I think it gained a lot of new fans from that.
We were jamming, played some gigs, got wasted, banged some hookers, you know, the usual.
James Rennison was going out parties every night, just babes all over him. Just everyone wanted a piece of him because he was such a great guy. Really, everybody just wanted to be his friend. Just get a glimpse or capture that moment of being amongst the wonderful guy that he is. Nachos Apocalypse Now, the Rennison.
Vince, he had the understanding that bears essentially ran the Nazi party and Hitler was a cowboy. Now, I know that's not right. I know that it was all the Mexicans that started it. So we tried to incorporate a documentary style live studio album and just mix it together, throw in some cowbell, and basically just jizz all over it.
Why not just live in happiness and bliss is what formed Nachos Apocalypse Now, the Rennison.
Standout track, I think, on Nachos Apocalypse Now, the Rennison was their second single, which was I Knew What Hitler Was Doing, but I Didn't Stop It Because I'm So Cool. A bit offensive considering, you know, it was a bit too soon. It released it in 1941. But, you know, that's what Nachos did. They pushed the boundaries in art. I respect that.
He said, I'm going to the desert. I didn't see him for 2 years. That's when we were supposed to release the Holocaust album, and he just went off somewhere. I don't know what was going on there.
Rennison at this point, he was the guy to be around. He was bigger than Kurt Cobain, Andre Rieu, and the actual country of Ireland. He was bigger than that.
Well, I first met James Rennison when I was with Matthew Wren back in Ibiza in 1999. We didn't really know each other at the time. And he said he was thinking of getting a band going called Nachos. At the time, I was just like, what the fuck kind of band's this? But over time, we kept having more encounters with him until eventually in, I think about 2005 or 6, they asked us, hey, would you be able to do a remix for us? And we were like, that's a pretty cool concept. So Evan, Matthew and I, we got together and we remixed a lot of Nachos' more popular tunes. And I think that was a pretty good success. One thing I will say was kind of annoying was when we were in the mixing process, Rennison was constantly calling us just to see how we were. We couldn't really find like a polite way to say, listen mate, you just got to lay off for a while, we're going to do our thing. But it was really nice of him just to check up on us. We assisted with the production on, I think it was the Isabella Allende album, that one. We assisted with the production on that. He pioneered this really innovative method where we don't actually go to a studio. What we did is whenever we got a burst of creativity, we just swing by his. So the whole album was just recorded in his house. It was very lo-fi, but at the time, it was innovative stuff. But because of that, the album had the longest production time of any album, I think, ever. The album still isn't finished. We're expecting maybe a late 2014 maybe release, but I don't know. It's when we can swing by his really that it comes down to.
In between Nachos, Apocalypse Now, the Rennison, we decided to take a break for a few years. Rennison went over to India to experience the world, and that's where he became very well known amongst the monks for his such a passive way of living and such a genuine being that he was. Troy went over to up to Sydney, stayed there for a while, the gay capital of the world. And myself, I always owed it to my wife that we were going to Antarctica.
He spent thousands of dollars investing in video games for our band. He said it was marketing, and we just had fun with it.
By the time James came back, he had a lot of inspirations dialed from the experience that he had in India. Some of them would call him a little bit strange. The album to follow was the White Album, dubbed by the critics and fans as the Queer Album, which came shortly after a side project, a queer side project called Songs About Ben Unplugged, which is about a little queer boy that he became experienced with in India. But that's another queer story. Ben Driscoll is a faggot.
The most confusing thing for me about the Nachos band was the White Album. Very, very strange. It's not necessarily left a bad taste in people's mouth, well, my mouth, but sort of had a weird sort of feeling after it. I wasn't sure. I had to question my myself after listening to that album.
The White Album was much what the Beatles did for the death metal world. Nothing at all. The album was complete shit.
I think the White Album was pretty shit. I don't mean to talk shit about James and especially Nachos. Well, we know James is the main attraction of Nachos, but I think Vincent sort of fucked it up that time. But other than that.
Has it touched you emotionally?
Sorry.
It's okay.
he was always determined, James. And you know, I taught him to love and respect people, and meet good people that he could spend time with. But then he goes off with idiots like Vincent and just ruins his life. Like, he's done something good with Nachos and everything, but I just think he could have done a lot better.